Hello everyone, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Elise. If you're new here, it's great to see you guys. As you can tell by the title of today's video, we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag, where I am going to check in with you guys about my reading for the first half of 2023. It's been very like hit or miss. There have been some really great reads, so I'm kind of like, but I guess that's pretty typical. If you don't know what the mid-year book freakout tag is, it's where I'm just talking to you guys about like my statistics on rating, my favorites, my least favorites, books that I'm looking forward to, and things like that. First, I wanted to give you a few statistics. Over here on Storygraph, I have read so far 84 books. By the way, just however much you read is fantastic. You do not have to read 84 books or 100 books or however many books to be a reader. Even if you read like one page, one paragraph, you're a reader. It does not matter how many books you read. I'm just sharing my joy of reading and love with you guys off of my soapbox. Of those 84 books, I have read over 30,000 pages. That's wild. If we look at the moods that I read the most, I read emotional books most. I'm an emotional girly, what can I say? Which totally checks out. Then we have lighthearted. I really like to go for those kind of humorous, happily ever after books because those are the ones that bring me the most joy. There's a lot of bad things that happen in life. I see it on the news. I see it in real life. I don't need to read about it too. I like those lighthearted books. And then we have funny, which goes with lighthearted, adventurous, and then we go down the way. I do think that my adventurous is going to probably increase because I feel a fantasy era coming on. I feel it. It's coming. It's gonna happen. And I do have plans to read some books out of my comfort zone. So I'm thinking that some of those that are kind of like last, tense, mysterious, dark, those are probably going to increase a little bit because I do have plans for a week of reading out of my comfort zone. So we'll see how that goes. If we look at the pace, medium pace is pretty accurate. I do tend to go for those medium pace books or fast pace. I'm not a slow pace girly. Nope. And if I did a 5-star book audit, I bet you that a majority of the books that I rate 5-star are either fast-paced or medium-paced. I don't know if there are any slow-paced one. We'll see. Moving on to page number, we have the 300 to 499 pages being my biggest slice of the pie. I would say that my favorite page range is between like 300 and 330 because it's shorter, but it has like enough substance. Honestly, those 500 plus pages it's getting up there. I think there's gonna be a few more because I'm almost done with the last Twisted book. I'm currently reading Final Offer and a few others that I know are over 500 pages, so that's probably gonna increase too. And then fiction versus nonfiction, 96% fiction naturally, but honestly I'm a little surprised with the 4% of nonfiction. I have read 3 nonfiction books this year, a little lower than I wanted to, but I think that's also going to increase as well. If you look at the genres, I don't always agree with the genre labels that Storygraph does. Like, I don't think that young adult is a genre. It is an age group or an age range, and I don't think that LGBTQIA is a genre. It is a component of stories, but I'll get off my soapbox again. Feel strongly about this, but anyway, that is okay. We have first romance, of course, and contemporary. Then I've obviously read a lot of young adult books this year. I think because they're just usually a little easier to read, like a little bit of a faster read, and I've really been reaching for those books, especially during my reading slump. That was rough. Fantasy, LGBTQIA, literary has been up in numbers this year so far. Normally that was a little bit lower on my list, whereas science fiction was a little bit higher. That's kind of interesting to see. I think that fantasy is gonna go up quite a bit because, again, fantasy era coming on. I also think that science fiction is gonna go up a little bit. I have a few on my TBR that I really want to get to. Maybe even literary because I think I'm in my literary era. And then moving on to format, we have 44% print. So like for the last few years, digital has been either my highest percentage or it has been at least like a third of the pie. I'm seeing that print going up. I'm very excited because that means I'm reading the books that I own. I'm gonna guess maybe it's gonna get up to 50% by the end of the year. Okay, let's move on to the categories. I wrote notes. Before I get started, I do want to mention that some of the books cross over in a lot of categories, but I am just going to try my best to put the books in only one category just for the sake of time and editing and stuff like that, because if I talk about every single book that fits into every single category, we'll be here for a while. And you know that I could talk for a while about books. Hey friends, before we continue with this video, I wanted to stop and give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Coppertist Wu. They were so kind to send me some items, and I want to show you this one in specific. Look at him! This is a crocodile bookmark. How cute is that? It has so much detail. Look at him and his little snout. Ta-da! I like putting him over here on the edge because it looks like he's trying to like swim off the pages. How fun is that? I have a discount code that I will put down below in the description, as well as the link to all of their stuff. They also have some really incredible jewelry, some serpentine and nature inspired jewelry and knickknacks. They have some really cool earrings and rings and necklaces and things like that, as well as some other knickknacks like this. I live in Texas, I live in the country, so I'm very inspired by nature, so this is definitely the perfect item for me to have on my shelves. I will also link their Instagram down below if you guys want to go check them out. Don't forget that discount code. Once again, thank you so much to Coppertist Wu. I really love my little crocodile. I'm super excited to use him for this book, Darling Girl, because it is the story of Peter Pan. It's a retelling of Peter Pan, and the crocodile is obviously a large character in Peter Pan, so it goes perfectly. Alright, back to the video. Let's get started. First, we have best books that I've read so far this year. There are 3 books that have really stood out to me that I have just absolutely loved every single component of the story, and that first one is The Measure. This book was so riveting from the first moment. This story, basically, the people get a box delivered to them on their 22nd birthday that has a string in it, and inside lies the measure of their life. If their string is short, they're going to have a short life. If their string is long, they're going to have a long life. So ensues this story of people opening their boxes, people not opening their boxes, politics and jobs and work and relationships completely drastically changing because of these boxes and the strings that lie within it. Then we have Notes on an Execution. Also another book that I just loved. This is very much out of my comfort zone. I don't normally read books like this, but wow. We start off with a man who is on execution row. He is due to die in a matter of hours, and so ensues his kind of remembering and thinking about what got him there. It jumps back into the past with 3 different women who all had an impact and influence in his life, and you kind of see how he came to be where he is. You see what put him in jail and what caused him to be on death row. Very interesting, very mysterious. Every single component of the story got wrapped up and it had a purpose. It was a very visceral experience. Like the way that she wrote it, you just like felt like you were in that moment, and it was so good. Okay, moving on. The next book we have is, where did you go, baby? The Sea of Tranquility. I thought that I would like this book, but I didn't think that I would love this book this much. This book is science fiction, futuristic. People live on the moon, people live on the earth, and then we follow a few different characters in different times. In the future, the people who live on the moon have a time institution, so this book does have to do with like jumping around in time. There's an anomaly that a scientist discovers, and so a man is sent to interview people who have interacted with this anomaly in order to uncover it and understand it and see what they can do about it in the future. So good. This maybe was slow paced, but the author just gives you just enough information that it keeps you following the crumb trail, but it's just enough to keep you on your toes and keep you fascinated and wanting you to read more. And this book is 255 pages long. I don't know how this author put so much in such a short book. Loved this book. Okay, let's go over some honorable mentions. They weren't like my absolute top favorite of all time, but I still really love them and adore these books. First, we have A Man Called O. This was such a fun book. I don't know why I really enjoy books like this, but I'm gonna have to read some more books like this, and also like The Brilliant Life of Eudora Honey said they had a lot of parallels in them, and it was one of my favorite books of 2022. So if you know any other books of this variety and style, please let me know down below in the comments. I would love to add them to my TBR. This story follows a grumpy old man. He has lost his wife. Things are just not the same. People just aren't the same anymore, and he just doesn't want to continue. As the story progresses, he does try to end things and gets interrupted every single time. And so we see this kind of like grumpy old man transforming, finding friends. It's very found family. It's very hopeful and reflective. There was humor in it. I just loved it. Then we have Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid, another book that I thought I would enjoy, but not this much. Oh my gosh, this book follows a woman who's kind of coming of age. She is kind of lost. She's floated around a lot, traveled, jumped around jobs, and she just kind of wants to find her thing and set down roots and become a better version of herself. So we follow her, and one night we follow her making two different choices, and that parallel timeline that ensues from those choices. And it's so fascinating how the stories end so differently, but there are still like key elements to both stories that happen in both timelines, and the different details that varied because of those choices. And it was just so good. It was so hopeful. I loved both endings of the story. I thought that I was gonna hate one or the other, but no, I loved both endings of the story, and it just made me so hopeful and like happy for our main character. There's a lot of character growth. I loved the relationship with her and her best friend. It was so beautiful. I really liked it. Then we have Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Lassay. This book was so fun. This book follows Bea, who is a 30-something autistic woman, and then we have Jamie, who is a 30-something man with like severe anxiety. They do not get off on a good start with each other, and then her sister and his roommate are engaged, and they start trying to like push them together to date. So they are kind of upset about the situation because they kind of tricked them into it. So they decide to fake date each other and then rip their friends and family apart because they want them to fall in love with them as a couple, and then be like, ha! We're no longer together. It's funny, it's quirky. I loved the communication. It was beautiful. I did not intend to annotate it, and then I ended up annotating it because I just loved the conversations that they had. And I mean, even with their social anxiety and autism and things like that, they just laid things on the table and worked it out. And I was like, this is such a beautiful representation of communication in a healthy relationship. I loved it. All right, the next category is the best sequel that I've read. Now, if you've seen this video, I am currently in the middle of a 112th series, and I should probably finish some of those series. However, the only sequel that I've read is Crooked Kingdom. Thankfully, it was a very good book. But it's kind of the only one that I can talk about. Crooked Kingdom is the second book in the Six of Crows duology. It was fantastic. It did take me a little bit to get into it. The jumping around of 6 different point of views, actually 7 if you include the opening and ending of the book. So 7 perspectives. So it did take a bit to get into, but then once things got started, oh my gosh, I loved it. I love these characters so much. Read that duology. We have new 2023 releases that I want to read, but I have not gotten a chance to yet. First, we have The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. Can't wait to read this book. This is about a love wager that 2 people make after a one-night stand with each other, and they decide to date other people and see who can find love first. I hear it's really funny. I hear there's tacos involved. What more can you ask for? Then we have X's and O's by Amy Leah. This is like the influencer series. I'm very excited to see how she does in this book. I just never got around to it. This kind of came out towards the beginning of my reading slump, so hopefully I'll get to that soon. Then we have The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. This is a companion novel to The Soulmate Equation. It follows her best friend Fizzy, who is a romance writer, but she just feels like her life is kind of fizzling out. No pun intended, but that was a good one. So she gets offered to be on this reality dating TV show. Then we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. I've been putting this off. I'm just nervous to read it because I really want to love it. The next category that we have is the most anticipated releases that I have for the second half of 2023. First, we have Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I read The Bodyguard and I loved it. It's coming up later in a category. So now I'm really anticipating reading that book because I just really enjoyed that writing style and the covers are gorgeous. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Then we have Cruel Seduction by Katie Robert. This is part of the Dark Olympus series. I love this series so far, so I'm very much looking forward to reading that one. I believe it's the 5th book in the series, which comes out in August. And then we have A Touch of Chaos, which is going to wrap up the entire Hades and Persephone series by Scarlett St. Clair. I started reading this book in 2020 and fell in love with it. So I've been reading that series along with the Hades saga because they have parallel timelines, but like different things happen in both. It's a little bit bittersweet because I've really enjoyed that series, but I think it's gonna be great. The next category is the biggest disappointment. Now I just want to put a disclaimer out here that it is not the author. Sometimes you just don't gel with everything that goes on in a book, and that's okay. And this is not saying anything bad about these authors whatsoever. It just wasn't to my taste. My first biggest disappointment. They both die at the end. The idea for the story was great. I did like the story and how it kind of taught you to like live your life to the fullest. Go live life. Make new friends. However, I didn't love the writing style. Another caveat is at the end he put like this really cool chart how everyone ended up being interconnected, and I was so impressed and I thought that was so cool. I'm just gonna flash so that you don't get spoiled. But it's just how everyone is interconnected, and I think that's so cool. So there were some really cool components to this book. There was a great message to this book, but the writing style just didn't gel with me. It's also my fault for having such high expectations for this book too. So it is what it is. Same goes for this book. I had really high expectations for this book, and it was a lot slower than I wanted it to be. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but this is going to be in a future video coming out where I talk about all of my most highly anticipated reads of 2023. So I'll let you watch that video if you want to know my thoughts as I'm reading this book as to why I feel that way. I think I just expected similar vibes. It wasn't similar vibes. While this one is still a second chance romance, it is a dual timeline, single person point of view. So those things are similar. I just felt like not a lot happened. The writing style was still very beautiful. I still really enjoy Carly Fortune's writing style. The next one that I have is my new favorite authors. So we have a few. First, this was my first Carly Fortune reading year. I think I'm still gonna pick up her books because I love her writing style. Then we have Chloe Lissay. I already have plans to read like all of her backlist. Now I read this book last year, but it's the physical book that I own of Karina Hall. I read another one of her book, Racing the Sun. Really enjoyed it, so I think I'm gonna try and read some more of her backlist. I really enjoy her writing style so far. Okay, the next category is a new fictional crush. We have Silas from Maggie Moves On. This book is so fun. It's about a YouTuber who does house flipping and then sells it and then moves on to the next one. So she takes on a huge project at a historical home in Idaho. Silas is her landscaper, and he just kind of like instantly wants to date Maggie. He's like, that woman, I want to get to know her, and kind of like pursues her. It's very found family. It's funny. I also loved the like YouTube side of things because obviously I have experience with YouTube, so it's fun like kind of being in the know with all of that. You know. Anyway, love this book. Love Silas. Okay, the next category is new favorite character. Now, this character would go in the crush category, but he's a little young for me, so he's going in new favorite character, and that is Wes from Better Than the Movies. Wes is so fun. Oh my gosh, we would be like best friends if I were in high school. I love the banter. He's very humorous, very kind. He seems very smart. So I just loved Wes a lot. The next category is books that made me cry. First, we have The Soulmate Equation. Oh my gosh, this was a reread for me, but this version had the bonus epilogue or something like that from River's perspective, and I like sobbed. I like sobbed when I read it. I have a Christina Lauren reading vlog with all of that if you would like to watch it. Okay, then we have The Nightingale. Now, I didn't cry like at all until the last chapter. In that last chapter, so, like gushing down my face. This has to do with World War II, following two sisters during German occupied France. It was rough. Beautiful, but rough. Okay, then we have Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, kind of towards the end. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. I also have a reading vlog with that in it if you want to check that out. And then we have The Measure, which I mentioned earlier, that last little bit of the story. Shook. So beautiful though. Okay, moving on to books that made me happy. Okay, guys. This book, I'm so mad that I waited so long to read this book. I've had this book for months. I think I bought it last summer and I just finally read it. I read it in a day. It was so cute. Not only was it set in Texas, which I love reading books set in Texas because that's where I'm from. I loved Jack. Maybe he should be one of my new favorite characters. Jack is the main male character that our main female character, Hannah, had to protect. She is a executive protection agent. Also what a lot of people call bodyguards, even though they technically aren't. It's apparently kind of different. She is the main person on his case, but he doesn't want his sick mom to know that he needs a bodyguard because he's a famous actor. So he asked her to pretend to be his girlfriend. Loved it so much. It made me very happy. Okay, next we have When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This just felt like a warm, fluffy blanket being wrapped around you on a cool day. I just had the best time reading this. It follows Amelia Ray Rose, who's a pop star. She just wants to get away. She's stressed. She just needs some time to herself. Goes to Rome, Kentucky. Her car breaks down and she ends up staying with this guy. He lets her stay in his guest bedroom while her car is being fixed. Forced proximity, grumpy sunshine, small town, found family. Very tropey, but like done very well. Next is supposed to be a favorite book that has been turned into a movie adaptation that you've read this year. I have not seen any. I don't really watch much TV, so I'm skipping this one, sorry. We are moving on to the most beautiful book that you have bought this year. So I'm gonna go back and just like, can we appreciate these covers for a moment? Gorgeous. Then we also have She Gets the Girl. I cannot wait to read this. Look at this. I think this is like friends to lover, lesbian babies, young adult. Oh, I just love the floral elements. I love that you can see so much personality about these characters already just by looking at their roller skates and their jeans and their hands. This cover tells so much. It's so pretty. I love these colors. Beautiful. This book, Under and Santi, were here. This is about a non-binary person who works at a taqueria. Their family's like, no, you need to go work on your art, but they're like, I don't know what to do. And then someone joins their taqueria who is an undocumented immigrant. So it kind of explores love, it explores queer identity, art, politics. Okay, I know I've already talked about like a gazillion books, but I just think this cover is so pretty, like in a animated way. Just look at all of the details, you know, it's just so colorful. All of the coral, all of the like filigree, all of the decorations and the turrets and the castle and the fish and the boat. I just think it's so pretty. This is called The Sunken City. It is a YA fantasy book about a pirate girl who gets thrown overboard during a storm into kind of like an Atlantis-esque city under the sea and finds out she's like a lost royal or something like that. There's a love triangle involved. I hear that there's mermaids and it is a trilogy. Okay, let's go to books that I need to read by the end of the year. A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I want to read this so badly. It's gonna happen. This is like a cozy fantasy about a witch. It is dangerous for witches to kind of be together because of the power signature, but there's an orphanage with 3 little baby witches, and they ask her to come and teach the witches. It's found family. Love in Other Words. I need to read this so badly. I've been meaning to, but it just hasn't called to me yet. But it's gonna call to me by the end of the year. Second Chance Romance, Friends to Lovers, Dual Timeline, Cemetery Boys. This is about a trans boy who has powers to call people from the grave. He sets out to find the ghost that murdered his cousin and set it free, I guess, so he can exact revenge. However, he ends up summoning the school's resident bad boy who did not go quietly into death. They're trying to tie up ends and try to help him out. It looks so fun. I've heard great things about this book too. This is a beautiful cover also. Okay, moving on. The last category is books that I read that were out of my comfort zone. First, we have I Found You by Lisa Jewell. I listened to this on audiobook. I think it was the first book that I read this year. It was definitely out of my comfort zone, kind of like thriller, suspense, mystery kind of thing, about a man who shows up on a beach. This lady takes him in and he has no memory. But then we bounce back to a past timeline. But here's the thing, there are 2 men in this timeline that it could possibly be. But this guy in the present, he doesn't know who he is. So you're like, oh, we just heard this detail in the past story, so it could be him. And then you get another chapter from the past and you're like, oh wait, but that could be him. Oh crap. So you don't know who it is until like the last few chapters, and I was shook. It was pretty good. Honestly, I think I gave it a 4-star. Might have to try some more books like that. It did give me strange dreams, but I'm just a wimp, so. Next one we have is The Rabbit Hutch. I cannot tell you what this book is about. It was all over the place. It was like watching something that you are just horrified to watch, but you can't look away. I couldn't stop reading it. It was very different. Not for everyone. Check the trigger warnings for sure. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you could find some books that you wanted to add to your TBR, or maybe there's a few books that we had in common. I would love to know in the comments below. I love looking at statistics and kind of checking in with my goals and how I'm doing throughout the year, just reflecting on what the year has brought me so far in terms of reading and books. It's been pretty good so far. I've had some really great reads. Until next time, my friends. Bye everyone. See you in my next video. I hope you're doing well.